It's Don here from the board. Thank you for checking out this video. So, today is another day where I got a really highly anticipated mail parcel. Came by DHL, and of course, as you would know because it's in the description of this video, it is indeed my FHANpad version 3. Now, several weeks ago, it'd be several weeks ago by now, I had received over just before Christmas, I think, from memory, the V2 PCBs, and then I built one and installed it, assembled it using a 3D printed case. Part of the interest check, part of the feedback and comments that I had sought from that particular build and post was that some people wanted a different layout. There was issues in regards to LEDs and layer indications and so on and so forth. And I played around a bit, modified some of the layouts and whatnot, and I thought, you know, I'm happy for where it was at, and I thought I'd go for the version 3 of that PCB, which is exactly what I've done. So I'm just going to give a quick refresher in regards to what the version 2 is, what the version 2 is like, and then we can go and have a look at the version 3, and hopefully at some point in time I'll be able to build it as well and show that off, make sure it works before, if we get to that point, another interest check and possibly a group buy. So let's switch over. Now here is the box that the version 2 came in. It was made, of course, as I said previously, by AllPCB, and I think they did a really fantastic job. It was quite affordable and the time frame was really great, and as you can see, I've still got some of these PCBs. Now I did put them up on Mech Market for the purposes of trying to recoup my costs in actually getting the V3 made, and a couple of people expressed interest, which was really fantastic, so thank you very much for that. Now I don't have a layout open at the moment to show what the original V2 was, but, and also funnily enough, I didn't bring my pad home that I built because it's actually plugged in at work, and I've been using it for about almost 2 weeks now. It's been doing really well. So the version 2 has the numpad focused over here. There is a unusual stagger of the function keys, which runs from 1 to 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then we've got the print screen, scroll lock and break, print screen, scroll lock and pause break keys over here. We've got our nav cluster of 6, and then we've got the arrows. So the logo kind of blocks a little bit of that, but that's what it looks like on the reverse. And of course, it's got the Pro Micro in the corner. Some of the feedback said, you know, we don't really like this stagger. Can we do something about that? And you know, there's a bit of wasted space here where I've actually put this silkscreen. So I kind of addressed that, and I personally wanted to move where the Pro Micro sat simply because it made it easier to actually install the Pro Micro, because with the 3D printed case, and I would imagine with any other case that isn't a sandwich case, it could get potentially challenging to solder the microcontroller on. So what I did was I went and changed the layout to what I'm going to bring up, which is this. Now this does have the matrix and mapping on it as I was working and designing on it, and you can see I've changed the layout into 2 rows of 6. I've got now floating keys over here. There's just 2 of them. I've brought the 3 additional keys further, so now this is a 3x3, and I've butted them up against the arrow keys. At least that was the principal design. I also had a request, interestingly, about turning it into a Mac compatible format, and because the Mac numpad actually has a slightly different format where they've actually got I think it's the equals key up here, which means it utilizes this as a split 1U. But then talking with other people, and they said, well, you know, we might not want the numpad. So I tried to add in compatibility to turn all of the 2U's into 1U's, which means this could be a fat macro pad entirely if you wanted the extra keys, but you didn't want a numpad configuration. So that was the design intent. Let us see if what I managed to do worked out. Now there was one additional sort of change that I decided to do with this order, which was I had requests about cases. There was requests saying, you know, can we get a bent aluminium case? there was requests about a full-blown CNC aluminium case, but the most common request was actually a PCB arrangement, because the version 2 here has no screw holes. So you can't put standoffs, and it's purely a plate mount based design. I'm still very green with PCB design, and I claim no expertise in that matter, but I asked, I got a lot of help, and I managed to put some mount holes into the PCB, which now I have a design that would allow a gherkin style PCB layered system. So here's the sack. It is a significantly larger box compared to the version 2, because in here is actually 5 sets of 3 PCB pieces, in that now in here I've got the plate, I've got the PCB, and I've got a base piece. So this was a lot more costly to manufacture because of that, but it's prototyping, and that's just how it goes. So the package is still sealed. I only picked it up from the post office not that long ago, so let's cut this open and check it out. Now the other thing that was something that I've done this time round is, because now I've actually got a plate, there was an issue of compatibility. Somebody had said, are you going to do ALPS compatibility? And I hadn't really thought very much, because the original PCB for the version 2, I thought I was using a MX ALPS hybrid switch footprint, which I was. But I was informed that that footprint was actually incorrect for ALPS because it had an incorrect angle and position. Thankfully, they were able to direct me to a different footprint, which apparently has had that error corrected, and so I used that instead, in theory. But then I had to design a plate that could handle both ALPS and MX, and well, I had some adventures with that, and hopefully it will turn out for the better. So I do have an ALPS switch here that I can test that with, and of course the standard MX switch here as well. So there's the box. Of course, we talked about the box before from AllPCB. It's, you know, probably 20% bigger, maybe, in that kind of dimension. It's a good rugged cardboard. Of course, they're not responsible for DHL beating it to death if it was beaten to death, but you can see there's a bit of an impact crumple there, so hopefully that should be okay. But PCBs are generally quite sturdy. There's no box damage and whatnot. It's just a bit of flexing and crumpling on that. One thing I do want to say about AllPCB is that they've been really fantastic, because when I did the plate layer, my files were unusual to them, because they were like, there's no solder mask on this. There's no traces. There's no like pads or anything. Is this correct? And I went, yeah. But then they weren't sure because they were asking me about the finishes and stuff like that. And so there was actually a lot of emails back and forth from AllPCB customer service. And I'm so grateful that they actually took that effort rather than just blindly making it and then saying, well, you got it wrong, so it's your problem. Which that was part of the issue that I had with another manufacturer, was that they actually went ahead and made it and then realized there was an issue and then tried to charge me for stuff that they had made without consulting me. So thank you so much to AllPCB and Hackett for giving that customer service, that experience. I think I had an exchange of about 14 emails over about 3 hours, late at night too. So China's 3 hours behind us, but that meant their customer service person was working probably about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night China time to actually do that, which, you know, is amazing, which is absolutely amazing. So this is the first time I'm seeing this, and let's check it. Holy! Alright, so let's just take some paperwork out there, but what the hell is this? Oh my god. My wife is right here, and she's looking at it going, she's confused as well. So I had anticipated this would be green, because I had done it just like the base, which is this part, which is this part that's neatly vacuum sealed. So this is the base plate. Okay, so you can put your screws and your standoffs right through it. and they had asked me about if I wanted it hassled, and I had no idea what that meant. And I'm not sure what had happened, but these are all silver on both sides. It's almost like they've gone and solder masked the whole surface on both sides. This is amazing. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So look at that. That is solid. That weighs a lot, which is pretty awesome. Okay, and then here is the version 3 PCB, which, you know, just by looking at it, I'm pretty happy. And of course, it's the same packaging as they've done before, which is bubble wrap on one side, and it's vacuum packed with silica, which is fantastic. Although this one has no silica. There is silica on that one. There is no silica on that one. So that's a little bit weird. There was silica in the first one when I got the V2, so I'm not quite sure what that is, but let's have a look quickly through the plastic. Everything seems to be order. It's well manufactured and soldered by the quick look. I do have a much smaller silkscreen there this time as well, but let's get down to details, shall we? So see if I can score that and just let some air into it, maybe. I think I went through the bubble layer and not the actual. Oh no, there we go. Rightio. I think I kind of understand what the emails were about now, because they had asked me about this plate layer if I wanted the hassle, and I looked up what the hassle actually was, which is hot air solder layer, and I said just prepare it however you normally do. And they asked me, so do you want to have the oil on it? And I didn't really understand, and I said I'm not very knowledgeable in this, so whatever you think is best. And I explained to them that I wanted this as a physical mount for switches that go into the PCB. That's what I actually wrote to them. And the customer service agent said, do you mind if I leave it until Monday when the engineer can have a look? And I said, that's fine. And so the Monday came and went, and they didn't get back to me, but the order updated from auditing to fabricating. So I thought the engineer must have looked at it and understood what I wanted, and that was fine. And now thinking back on it, I think they were confused on if I wanted it to be like this, or if I actually wanted the hot air solder layer across the whole board. And the oil that they're talking about must have been the solder oil. So they've essentially coated the entire surface and then used the hot air to melt the solder oil and coat the whole thing as a solder layer, which, if it's true, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Right, here we go. Here's now, once again, I have, so it's 5 per as the order, but there's actually 6 here. So it looks like they did have enough space to cut an extra 1 for the order, whereas last time when I had ordered 5, I ended up with, I think, 8 from memory. So here is the version 3, and we can see, well, actually we can't see because I put it away. Let's see if I pull out a version 2. Now they are of course very distinctly different now because of the silk screen, but it looks like my version 3 is bigger because I've actually got the extra screw mount holes, so you can do a PCB to PCB kind of design. In terms of the layout, and also this has got rounded corners, much more aggressive than these rounded corners. But in terms of the actual layout, you can now see I've got the 2 rows across, just no reflections, 2 rows across the top. I've got the 2 standalone switches. I've now got this 9 block and abutment up to the arrows. And I've got some unusual behavior happening here simply to enable the breakout into 2 1Us. And in addition, I've actually got 2 resistors and 2 diodes, LED 1 and 2, for hopefully people who understand how to code it, indicating layers. Now, I didn't actually have enough pins at the time in the knowledge to break out more LEDs across the whole board. I realize it's doable, and I have learnt more since I designed this and had this sent for manufacture, but baby steps at a time, right? And also because I'm naturally not an LED kind of guy, I kind of said, look, I don't feel this needs an LED, and for the moment, because if it's just nobody else is going to purchase it, I'm not going to bother with the LED factor. So silkscreen, the quality is really fantastic, and I want to show you the detail that they have. If the camera will focus, look at how great that is. That is a tiny logo, and they've managed to get most of those keyboard key separation, which is absolutely fantastic. So you can see I actually finished knocking this together on the 30th of December, and today is the 12th. So between me getting it together, saving up some money, sending it off, and it coming from China to me, it was only 12 or so days, if you count public holidays as well. And of course, I've moved the ProMarco 1 set over, so it's a lot easier to work with. Right, let's put number 2, version 2 away. And let's break out some of these other pieces. Well, actually, while I've got this here, I might as well just test the fitment, because obviously, yeah, so we can see that with the Alps. Where is it? Yes, it's in the middle there, right? Yeah. So I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's the pins there, slightly out of focus because it's probably too close for it to focus well. Oh, well, you can kind of see them in a blurry feature. I think the camera struggles because of lighting, and also the reflections on the PCB is making things challenging. But you'll have to trust me that when I say the PCB holes, there we go, you can sort of see the pins wiggling there. It looks like they are good. And then of course, if I use that same switch hole, which is this one here, on that side, and I put in a PCB mounted MX switch, it seems to fit just fine and holds, which is nifty, which is very nifty. Okay, right. So let's break out the bottom plate, because I want to leave Mr. Silver here till last. I'm actually still incredibly amused, even more so simply because there was apparently no extra charge for it. I mean, I wasn't charged any extra for it. I wasn't requested for any more money. So, yeah, pretty chuffed about that. Okay, so I'm seeing a potential issue here, and it's technically not an issue, only because it's business more than anything else, by the looks of it. And I haven't counted the other one yet, but we'll see in a second. Right, so the order was for 5 of these, and I got 5 of these. So I've got 5 of the baseboards, only 3, 4, 5, whereas I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the PCBs. Now, of course, it was ordered for 5, so I only got 5, and you just can't complain about that, right? No complaints whatsoever. Interesting, though. Let's have a look at the quality of the manufacture here. There's a blemish right there. I'm not sure what's going on there. And there's another blemish there. And there's another blemish there. And there's one there. And there's one there. So it seems like part of their equipment or manufacturing run is consistently making a mark there for some reason or other. Now the other side seems to be pretty clean, and just going to show in theory that if this was positioned correctly, the holes should line up straight through. Now, do I have something that'll fit through that? That won't go through it. Let me see. bit of plastic from 3D printing. It's 1.75 mil, so it should pass through the 2 mil hole, and it does. So there you go. So that lines up in the middle, and then in theory the corners should line up as well with little to no effort. So that would essentially have the standoff in between it, and then you would have your Pro Micro underneath, and it would be a Gherkin style case. So happy days, happy days. Even though I'm actually one base short of being able to have an extra set, but you can't complain. You request 5, you pay for 5, and as long as you get 5, right? So let's see how many of these did I get, and it looks like I got 5 as well. Right, so there you go. That's all within bounds. The bonus 1 PCB, I guess, is nice, but you just can't expect that they will consistently give you extras or freebies. And let's break out the magic silver board. I do wonder if I repeat the order and I increase the volume, if they would have notes against it and do exactly the same thing, or would the next person who manufactures this or engineers that run the run look at it and go, nah, that's stupid, mate, and then revert it back to the green sort of standard PCB coating or not. Of course, that would be a bit of a gamble, and you can't really guarantee that, especially because, you know, this isn't a solder mask. I mean, not a solder mask. This isn't a silk screen. There we go, and it's ridiculously beautiful is the way that I want to describe it, because the grounding issue that you're potentially going to have with this, if you had electrical components, is just mildly entertaining to think about. Now, you know that this is vacuum sealed because look at those switch holes that the plastic's sort of just sucking in on. Okay, glorious, glorious. Now, I do actually have silkscreen on this, by the way, and you might not be able to see it very well because it was in the plastic, but first and foremost, it's, yeah, on both sides. Now, this is, it feels just as sturdy, but, yeah. So, I'm just going to come up to here, see if it'll focus. The words are kind of not really focusing very well. See if I stick my hand underneath it. I had actually had score and snap written on it. So it looks like that's the native wafer underneath, and they haven't actually done the green layer on top of the internal layer. That's what it actually looks like to me. So rather than it being a copper wafer, it's actually this metallic wafer instead. But that's okay. That's okay. Now, there's a bit of a failure here because, and I think this is a lack of experience from me, and what I mean by that was I had drawn edge cuts on this PCB component, and they haven't, it's clear that they haven't actually edge cut through it. It might be simply because the size of line that I'd done doesn't work that way. So essentially for this prototype, this plate is a partial fail. It's a partial fail because I had initially designed it to be that you would score the edges and then you could snap it off to turn it into the 2U footprint. But obviously if you look at it, that's not going to work because they haven't been cut. Now it doesn't mean that you can't cut it yourself, but you have to be very careful and you'd have to carefully file it down to suit. But I can at least test the ALPS footprint because there you go. ALPS footprint seems to work really well. And then you've got an MX footprint, which should sit just like that. So it works pretty well. No complaints there. And of course, if I line this up, hopefully both of those will fit into the PCB correctly as well, if I've done the job right, which they do. So there's the MX, and then you can't really see the pins very well, but yeah, there's the pin for the ALPS switch, and there you go. So it's a partial success, it's a partial fail. The success is that the through holes are in the right position and a good size to be able to get a screwdriver in as well. And I've got these big fat holes because I designed them to take 5mm LEDs if 5mm LEDs were your thing. Now, I went to a local electronics retailer and I bought a 3mm and a 5mm LED as well as some resistors to suit. So when I do get around to building one of these to see how it turns out, I will be able to make sure and check out. Look at that. 5mm LED sits right through that. Heaps of space. And of course the 3mm can fit in as well if the 5mm does, but it will be of course slightly dwarfed. But that said, with switches in, the height is the 5mm will just sort of peek out, whereas the 3mm will be sort of practically in line with that hole. So I think that's okay. The 5mm kind of looks a bit better, but the 3mm does hide a bit. But when you've got keycaps and switches sitting above it, the 5mm is possibly a better option for that. Possibly a better option. Right, so what's our verdict? I'm very bemused at the fact that I have this. I'm kind of in two minds in that, yes, it's a success that the plate does work, but it's not a success because my score and snap doesn't work. It's not a deal breaker because I can still put switches in and I can still use it as a numpad. It just means I'm going to have split 1Us, only because I'm not going to bother trying to saw and cut it. That's fine. It's not a big deal. It's definitely not a groundbreaking deal for me to build one, at least. The plate works. It looks like the switches should line up with everything. It looks like the holes are good, the LEDs are good, the PCB is good, but my only concern is how durable this silver coating is, because it's definitely not going to be as durable as this proper green coat stuff. So if AllPCB, you come across this review and you see it, and of course if I do make another order, I'm first going to have to figure out how to fix that score and snap issue, or if I just blow it away straight away. And secondly, how do I communicate to you, AllPCB, that I want this on this rather than know this on this? Language barriers. If someone has the technical terminology and know-how to tell me how we can get to that, I would really love and appreciate that, because that would be absolutely fantastic and really important to me. But just to, confirm for my own peace of mind, once I pull this ALPS switch out of the plate, what I'm going to do is get my multimeter and I'm going to just check that that conductivity. So there's my multimeter. We're good. And look at that conductive layer. So yeah, I wonder if it shouldn't conduct to the other side. No, it doesn't. Okay. But yeah, so if you want an exposed ground plane, ask me how and I'll show you the Gerber file. I don't know what possible application you possibly would want. I don't know how durable that is. I don't even know how safe that is, because is that actually lead? Or is it because of ROHS, removal of hazardous substances, it's not actually lead, but it's just some other metal? I actually don't know. So I may have to talk to some people, and if it is lead, then I will have to carefully package that and do something with it, dispose of it. I don't know, because it just wouldn't be safe for me to use it in a build and make it available or sell to people, even as seconds, etc., etc. But I think that's been relatively successful. Now, of course, it was a long process to get to V3, because I had to learn about LEDs, and then of course I had to reroute, but I learnt a lot about rerouting as well. So thank you to the guys on the Australian Mech Keys Discord for teaching me about better routing practices. So the actual traces on this are much cleaner, much neater than the version 2, and that's kind of evident when you do look at it. I've got some really lovely straight rows over there, and then the columns over on the back are really quite neat too. And if you are thinking about designing your own PCB, building a PCB, ending up with a set like this, I highly encourage you to do so. And you know, it is expensive to do prototyping, but it's also relatively cheap. It's also relatively easy to do prototyping in that, you know, I put this through and AllPCB managed to knock it out of the park and get it to me very quickly, very easily. And, you know, like I said, the customer service was absolutely fantastic, right? I have absolutely no complaints in the way that they communicated. It's also partially my own fault for not actually understanding and getting that detail right, which ended up with that exposed layer. But if you are interested in making your own PCB, you know, there's heaps of keycard resources out there, and if you don't have a preference for a particular PCB manufacturer as well, I would say you can check out AllPCB. So that's their website. They do quotes. You just chuck in the details here for size and whatnot. It'll pump out a cost for whatever it is that you're putting in. So, you know, if you make a 500 mil by a 500 mil PCB and you say, I just want a quantity of 5, it tells you straight away, this is the cost and this is what you're going to expect for shipping, right, to Australia. And then all you have to do from there, chuck it in your cart. Oh, well, I don't know about whatever the email is. And then there'll be a box which allows you to upload your Gerbers, and then they don't blindly make it, right, which is what happened with this and the really great communications that I had, because if they feel that there's an issue with it, if they're uncertain about it, then obviously they'll get back to you. Whereas some other companies, which I won't name, did not do that for me. So I don't quite have loyalty here with these guys. And now that I've had this issue turn up as well, it does give me second thoughts about it, but I'm still willing to give them a try simply because price-wise, they're reasonable compared to the other companies. The service is really solid so far. The speed of production is really great, and the quality of production is, you know, within what I would expect acceptable limits. So I will of course have links below, and they do have a referral system. Now, of course, shameless plug for my own referral, which I will try and put into the description, because if you've never used them before, you plan on using them, it'll benefit me. And hopefully you'll be able to get a great experience and service with them as well. And it, by benefiting me, helps me keep designing, playing, producing PCBs, experimenting, learning, more videos, and so on and so forth. Right. So, of course, this is a long video, getting to be a long video now, as we normally do with me. But I hope you enjoyed running through the V3 prototype. I will build it. I'll solder it. I'll put it together. We'll play test it, and then we'll get to the interest check. Now, if you don't like the look of the V3, or you think the V3 is a little bit excessive, and you're happy with the V2 for all of the issues that it has for a lot of the other people, which led to the V3, and you want to purchase one, I still do have a couple available, as you saw in the box, so please get in contact with me. You can hit me up at theboardpodcast@gmail.com or on Reddit, Mech Market, and so on and so forth, and we can make something happen. All right, cool. So thank you very much for coming along and checking out the video. Yeah, look forward to another video soon involving the FHANv3 V3. So until next time, happy clacking.